Hey students, sorry I'm out today. Today you're going to watch this video and learn about two-way tables. So they're pretty easy, you just got to make sure that you're reading them correctly. So a two-way table is for bivariate categorical data. So that's when you're collecting information on two different categories. Such as the table we have here, we're collecting information on who owns a laptop and who owns a cell phone. So the two-way table shows the frequencies of each of the categories. Okay, these are our margins, and then these are our cells. Okay, so it says that Nathan collected data from the students in his class on whether or not they had a cell phone and a laptop, and then he made a two-way frequency table to show his results. So owning a laptop, there's 11 students total who own a laptop. Do not own a laptop is 17 students total. Owning a cell phone, 24 total. Not owning a cell phone is 4 total. But the total of everybody questioned was 28. You can see the totals all add up to 28. Then you would read in between, you just go to both categories, say, okay, this 10 is of kids who own a laptop and a cell phone. This 1 is kids who own a laptop but don't own a cell phone. So let's answer the questions. How many students have both a laptop and a cell phone? So a laptop, cell phone, where do they meet? Right there, so that's 10. How many students have neither? No laptop, no cell phone, right there, that's 3. How many students have a laptop but do not have a cell phone? 1. Students have a cell phone but don't have a laptop is 14. Total number in the class is 28. Then it asks, what trends can you see in Nathan's two-way table? Well, you could say a lot of things. You could say that 24 people own a cell phone, while only 11 total owned a laptop. You could say 17 people don't own a laptop. You could say only 4 people don't own a cell phone. I said more people own a cell phone than a laptop. And that's because the cell phone was 24, the laptop was 11. The next question says, is there evidence that those students who own a laptop also own a cell phone? So be careful when you read this. Is there evidence that those students who own a laptop also own a cell phone? So you have to own the laptop first. So if I go to own a laptop, there's 11 students who own a laptop. So of those 11, 10 of them own a cell phone. So my answer is yes. 11 own a laptop, and of those 11, 10 also own a cell phone. So I could say that there is evidence that if you own a laptop, you're likely to also own a cell phone. Okay. All right, next. Okay, it says high school students in the United States were invited to complete an online survey on their favorite superhero powers. Sounds pretty exciting. Of the surveys completed, 450 were randomly selected to use in a two-way table to summarize the data. The following list shows the data collected. Okay, so now we have to get this data into the table, and then we're going to talk about the table. So there was 100 students who said that their favorite power was to fly. So fly. That's a total of 100. 49 of those students, so 49 of these 100, were female, which leaves 51 to be male. So that's done. 131 students selected the power to freeze time. So freeze time is 131. 71 of those were male. So that leaves 60 for there. 75 chose invisibility. 48 of them were female. So 27 were male. And then 26 wanted super strength. And of those 26, 25 of them were male. Only one woman wants super strength. Telepathy was 118. and 70 of those were female, so 48 were male. And then you need to total all these up. You get 228, 222, and hopefully it said there was 450. So we get 450 this way and 450 that way. So it goes back through and tells you that the shaded cells are called the marginal frequencies. They're in the margin. So these are marginal frequencies. They are located around the margins of the table and represent the totals of the rows and the columns. The non-shaded cells within the table, in these cells, are the joint frequencies. The frequency of wanting to fly and being female. The frequency of invisibility and being male. Joint, together. So now, with this information, we want to construct a relative frequency table. So this is our frequency table based on our information. A relative frequency table, we're going to put some conditions on it. You might hear people say, oh, well, it's all relative. Well, relative to what? So a relative frequency table is when we put some other conditions on it. So it says, construct a relative frequency table for the data in the above two-way table. A relative frequency can be found by dividing each cell by the total number of surveys. So this is just my raw data. Down here, I'm going to give relative frequencies. Relative to what? Well, relative to the total. Okay, a relative frequency table is always based off of the total. So to do that, I have to do some division. So I would say this is 49 out of the total of 450. Because 49 was in that cell, and there's 450 total. So I have to do 49 divided by 450. And I get 0.108 repeating. So I'm going to round to 3 decimal places, or the thousandths, and say 0.109. Okay, then down here would be 51 over 450, 100 over 450, 60 over 450, 71 over 450. You guys get the idea? You need to make sure that over here you're getting 1, or as close to 1 as possible, because we're rounding, so we might be a little bit off, a little bit over, a little bit under because of our rounding. But I can see I'm putting in the fractions, and then I'm going to change them to decimals. So I'll do the math for you. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm just doing the math for you and not writing all the ratios in. Okay, so you can see I'm a little bit over 1 because of my rounding. So it says, what is the joint relative, so joint, and looking at the white ones, the joint relative frequency for females who selected invisibility as their favorite superpower? So females, invisibility. The joint relative frequency, you could say, is 0.107. You could say 10.7%. You could say 48 out of 450. Okay. What is the marginal relative frequency for freeze time? So marginal, I'm in the gray. Marginal freeze time is 0.291, or 29.1%, or 131 over 450, right? Interpret the meaning of this value. That 29.1% of those surveyed want the power to freeze time. Oh, and you can't see any of that. Alright, what's next? Okay, so that's a relative frequency table. Relative is always the total. Okay, then we can put other conditions on it. We can make it a row conditional relative frequency or a column. So ours says row. So now instead of using the grand total, I'm going to use the row totals. Okay, so this would be 49 out of 228, 51 out of 222, 100 out of 450, 60 out of 228, 71 out of 222, 131 out of 450. So I'm using their joint frequency with the total of their rows. If I was doing columns, I'd be using the column totals. So you got to be careful, row or column. So I'll finish filling this out. So what do we got? 48 out of 228, 1 out of 228, 70 out of 228, 228 out of 228, 27 out of 222. 25 out of 222. And sometimes they might ask you to round, so then you know, write it as a decimal, or they might ask you, nearest hundredth, nearest thousandth. They might ask you to leave it as a ratio. It just depends on what they're asking you for. And then, of course, 450 out of 450. These would all be 1. Okay, so what percent of females prefer invisibility? So this is of the row. So females, you have to first be female, which is why they asked me for a row, because first they have to be female, and invisibility. That would be 48 out of 228, and it said percent. So that's about 21%. What percent of males prefer super strength? So first I must be a male, which is why I use that row total. And super strength, 25 out of 222, or about 11%. So it says, suppose that a student is selected at random from those who completed the survey. If the selected student is male, what do you think was his response? So he's going to be male. I would bet his response was to freeze time. Okay, the greatest, and that's because the greatest number of males chose freeze time. Okay, so let's see, 71 out of 222. Let's see what percentage that is out of 222. So about 32%, which is the highest for the males. Okay, so it says the evidence of an association is strongest when the conditional relative frequencies are quite different. So one will be much smaller or much bigger than the other one. It's easier to pick out evidence. When they're all about the same, it's hard to have a clear-cut winner on who are they most likely to choose. If all of these are close in percentage, we can't tell what one person prefers. Do females prefer one thing? Do males prefer one thing? We can't draw any conclusions. So, like super strength being so low is great for us because we can tell females really aren't interested in super strength. So it says, if the conditional relative frequencies are nearly equal for all categories, then there is probably not an association between the variables. Is there evidence of an association between gender and favorite superpower? So I'm not going to write this all out, but I would say yes, there is. Females aren't interested in super strength because only 1 out of 228 chose super strength. Males are most interested in freeze time because 32%, or 71 out of 222, chose freeze time compared to 25 out of 222. Okay, so most women would like telepathy. That's the one I would probably want too. So I guess I'm typical in that manner. All right, that is it for notes. So go ahead and move on to your homework, and I think that's it. Let me see anything about the homework that sticks out to me that we need to talk about. And it doesn't. We're skipping number 4, so we're good with that. All right, so that's it. Have a good day.